The ship was spinning. Not in any poetic or dramatic sense. The actual deck beneath my boots was rotating at about 7 degrees per second, because a Kreth boarding pod had punched straight through our starboard hull like a hot spike through paper, and the emergency bulkheads had sealed the wrong corridor, which meant half the crew was running in the wrong direction, and I was pressed flat against a wall in Section 4 holding a plasma rifle I had never actually fired in a live engagement, wondering very seriously if today was going to be the day I died next to a vending machine that still owed me a protein bar from 3 days ago. "Carter," the voice cut straight through the alarm klaxon, clean and sharp. "You are breathing incorrectly." I turned my head. Standing beside me, calm and completely composed, as though the ship were not currently tumbling through contested space with a hole in its side, was Voela Soren, Chief Intelligence Advisor, Thalian by species, 4 arms, eyes that shifted color depending on her emotional state, currently a flat and unreadable silver, 2.5 meters of alien professionalism standing in the middle of an active crisis and giving me breathing advice. "I am breathing incorrectly," I repeated. "Short, rapid breaths restrict oxygen flow to the prefrontal cortex. You need longer exhales, measured ones. We have a boarding pod in our hull, Vela." "I am fully aware. Long exhales, Carter." I exhaled, longer than I wanted to. She was right, which was the most irritating possible thing she could have been at that specific moment. Her name was Vela, and she had been assigned to our vessel, the GCS Ardent Light, as part of the Third Coalition Diplomatic Exchange. On paper, that program sounded extremely dignified. In practice, it meant a crew of 42 humans were sharing their ship with 11 aliens from 4 different species, all of whom had very strong opinions about everything, and a remarkable talent for staying completely composed while humans came apart at the seams. I had been assigned as her official human liaison. Command had looked at my service record, seen that I spoke 3 languages, had 2 years of xenoculture coursework on record, and had once talked a furious Vorath dock officer out of impounding our supply shuttle using nothing but hand gestures and half a chocolate bar, and they decided this made me qualified. I had decided, within the first week, that they had never actually spent time with a Thalian. Vela Soren was the most precise, most analytical, most relentlessly curious individual I had encountered in 12 years of service. She documented everything. She asked questions about things that no one had ever thought to question. She treated the entire human species as an ongoing research project of unlimited scope, and she kept notes in a physical pad with a real stylus, because she had told me once that she wrote faster than she thought, and thinking faster than she wrote was how mistakes happened. The alarm dropped from a full wail to a low, steady pulse. The deck stabilized under my boots. Over the ship comm, Lieutenant Danny Wren's voice came through with the particular kind of forced calm that signals things are bad but survivable. "Boarding pod neutralized. Kreth force repelled. 17 casualties, none critical. Breach in Section 7 confirmed sealed. All personnel stand down from combat positions." I let out a breath. A long one, since that apparently mattered now. Vela was already writing on her pad. "What are you writing?" I asked. "Observations." "About the engagement?" "About the way you held the rifle. You favored your left side despite being right-handed. A stress response, I believe. Humans frequently revert to dominant childhood physical patterns under acute fear." She clicked the stylus once. "Also, you spoke to the vending machine." "I did not speak to the vending machine. You said, and I quote, 'Not today.'" I opened my mouth. I closed it again. "It still owes me a protein bar," I said. Vela tilted her head, which on a Thalian is the functional equivalent of a raised eyebrow. "You believe the machine carries an outstanding debt to you. It is a figure of speech." "I see." She wrote something else down. I did not ask what. This was, more or less, how every single day worked when you were the human liaison to Vela Soren. By the time I made it to the common area near the crew quarters that evening, the ship had been stabilized, the breach team had confirmed the seal, reports had been filed, and 11 alien observers had each received individual status briefings in their own communication styles. My boots felt like they were made of solid concrete. I smelled like recycled air and old adrenaline. Lucy Hale was sitting at one of the long tables with Vela. Lucy was our ship's cultural communications officer, one of the sharpest people on the crew, and the person most responsible for whatever informal education the alien observers had received about day-to-day human life. Between Lucy and Vela was a tablet, and they were both looking at something on it. Lucy was grinning. Vela had the focused, careful frown of someone working through a problem that was not resolving the way she expected. "Carter," Lucy said the moment she saw me, "your liaison is confused about something, and I am not going to be the one to explain it." "Why not?" Because I will start laughing immediately and ruin the whole thing. I sat down across from them. Viola looked up. Her eyes were pale amber, which I had learned meant she was concentrating hard on something that was refusing to make sense. She slid the tablet toward me without a word. It was a saved log from the ship's casual crew chat channel, the informal text channel where people said whatever they wanted, complained about the food, shared whatever was on their minds, and used every piece of English slang in existence without once stopping to consider that a Thalian intelligence advisor was reading every word of it. The exchange was from 2 nights ago. Our crew medic, Sam Briggs, had been complaining about bad sleep. His message read, "Finally figured it out. He'd been sleeping puppy style, and it is the only thing that works. Curled up like a ball, knees to chest, out in 30 seconds flat." Below it, the crew had responded the way crews always do. Finn Graves said he had been doing the same for years. Claire Bishop called it the burrito method and said it was the only reason she survived long deployments. Normal conversation, completely innocent. Viola had highlighted Sam's line in red. "Puppy style," she said, precisely and carefully, the way she always said words she was not entirely certain about. "Go on," I said. "A puppy is a juvenile canine, a young dog. Style, in this usage, refers to a manner of doing something, a method, a way of being." She folded 2 of her 4 hands on the table. "So, puppy style is a way of acting like a dog." From beside her, Lucy took a very long, very deliberate sip of her drink. "Not exactly," I said. "It means sleeping curled up in a tight, compact position, the way a puppy sleeps when it is comfortable. It is a visual reference to the position, not the behavior." Viola looked at me. She looked at her notes. She looked back at me. "I practiced it," she said. The common room went completely quiet. "You practiced it," I said. "Yes, I read the message 2 days ago. I believe in experiential research. Understanding something conceptually is one level of knowledge. Embodying the concept is another. So this morning, before the boarding engagement, I cleared the floor of my quarters and got down onto my lower 2 limbs, the configuration that most closely approximates a quadruped stance. I then moved across the floor in a manner consistent with the canine locomotion I observed in your crew's archived entertainment files. I looked at Lucy. Lucy was no longer sipping anything. She had set her drink down and was pressing both palms flat over her face. "You crawled," I said, "across your quarters floor." "I did, yes. I also attempted the paw motion. Thalians do not have paws, as you know, so I used my lower left hand. The effect was not entirely convincing, but I felt the effort was important for accuracy." She paused. "I also attempted vocalization. The archived files were consistent on the point that dogs produce a specific sound. I believe I approximated it reasonably well." I heard a sound from behind me. I turned around. Sam Briggs had walked into the common room at some point during this conversation and was standing in the doorway holding a mug of coffee, staring at Vela with the expression of a man whose entire understanding of something had just been permanently rearranged. "That was you," Sam said very quietly. "This morning, I heard something from the next compartment, and I filed a maintenance note about a possible ventilation fault." "I was conducting research," Vela said, with complete and unshakable dignity. "You were barking," Sam said. "I was vocalizing in a culturally investigative manner." Sam walked to the table very slowly. He set his mug down. He sat down. He placed his face in his hands. I tried to hold it together. I wanted on the record that I genuinely tried. I had spent 12 years working across species. I had been in rooms with beings who communicated through patterns of smell, who found eye contact offensive, who experienced time in a way that made scheduling a meeting with them a philosophical exercise. I believed I was prepared for anything the universe could produce. I was not prepared for this specific thing. The laugh came out of me, the way pressure escapes a damaged seal. Sudden, total, completely beyond any effort at control. Not a polite sound, not something I could dress up as a cough or redirect into a professional clearing of the throat. A full and unguarded laugh that bent me forward over the table, made my eyes water, and left me completely unable to produce a coherent word for a long stretch of time. Viola watched me with the patient composure of a scientist observing something unexpected. Her eyes had shifted again, from amber to a color I had never seen from her before. A pale, slow-shifting green with soft gold at the edges. "You find this humorous," she said. "I find this," I started, and had to stop. Lucy was laughing too now, quietly, but completely helplessly, her forehead resting on her folded arms. Sam still had not moved his face from his hands. "Vela, you got on the floor. You crawled around. You made sounds. You scratched at your door. Because Sam said he sleeps curled up. The scratching, she said, was for completeness. Lucy made a noise into her arms that was not entirely human-sounding. I want to be very clear, I said, getting myself partially under control and looking at her directly. I am not laughing at you. I need you to understand that. I am laughing because the universe just produced something that is so precisely absurd and so completely genuine that my body does not know what to do with it. She considered this for a moment. You are laughing because the situation is improbable. I am laughing because you scratched at your door with your lower left hand. Yes, she said, I did do that. And I was gone again. It took a few minutes to fully come back. When I did, Sam had lifted his face from his hands and was staring at the far wall with the expression of someone trying to locate inner peace in a room where it had recently fled. Vela was writing in her pad again. Lucy had sat up and was wiping her eyes with the back of her hand, still making small, involuntary sounds every few seconds. I am sorry, Sam said eventually. He was speaking to Vela. His voice was honest and a little raw. I should have added context to that message. I never thought about who else might read it. Context would have been useful, Vela agreed. She was not being sharp about it. She was just being accurate, which was the only way she ever was. When I said puppy style, I meant completely literally, just the position. Knees to chest, curled in a ball, nothing else in it. I understand that now. She crossed something out on her pad, wrote something new. It is a positional metaphor derived from an animal reference. Exactly. Humans use a great many positional and behavioral metaphors that draw from animals. We really do, Lucy said. I have a substantial list of them. Viola turned a page. There is also catnap, which I have not yet investigated experimentally. Sam picked up his mug. He stood up. He carried it to the far end of the common room and sat down with his back to all of us. That one just means a short sleep, I called after him. No action required, Vela. She wrote that down too. A quiet settled over the table. Not an uncomfortable one. The kind that comes after something real has happened in a room. Something no one there is going to forget, and everyone is letting it land properly before moving on. I watched Vela write. 4 hands, 2 writing and 2 resting, the stylus moving in those short, precise strokes she always used. The pad angled slightly away from me as it always was. Her eyes were still that pale green with the gold edges. I had not seen that color from her before today, and I made a note in my own way, not written down, to ask her about it later when the moment was right. There was something I kept coming back to, sitting there. She could have sent me a message 2 days ago asking what the phrase meant. That would have taken her 30 seconds. Instead, she had set the question aside, done the background research on canine locomotion and vocalization, cleared her quarters floor, and gotten down on her hands and knees with complete seriousness to try and understand a thing that one human had said to another human about how he slept. She had done it the hardest possible way because to her the hardest possible way was the most complete way, and being complete was simply who she was. I had worked alongside species that were smarter than us, faster than us, longer lived than us. Species that could navigate by magnetic field and calculate orbital mechanics in their heads and communicate across 50 kilometers without equipment. But in 12 years, I had never met a single non-human being who cared about understanding us the way Viola did. Not as a diplomatic requirement. Not as a professional task, actually cared, in a way that made her get on the floor of her quarters before a battle and try to be something she was not, just to get a little closer to knowing what we meant when we opened our mouths. Vela, I said. She looked up. Next time you have a phrase you are not sure about, come to me before you practice it. She held my gaze for a moment. And if you laugh before you explain it, the explanation still comes. That is a promise. She looked at me steadily. Then, for the second time that evening, the light pulsed behind her eyes, soft and brief, like something warm moving behind glass, there for less than a second and then gone. The Thalian equivalent of a smile, I had come to understand. Not given easily, not performed, just real, when it came. Agreed, she said. She turned to the next page of her list. I have a question about butterflies in your stomach. Sam's voice came from the far end of the room without him turning around. I was never here. I have never been here. This room does not exist. Lucy leaned forward on her elbows with the bright, sharpened attention of someone who knew exactly what was coming and had decided to enjoy every second of it. Oh, this one is going to be wonderful. I looked at the phrase on the pad. I thought about how to explain it. I thought about Vela processing it, and the questions she would ask afterward, and whether she was going to need to be specifically told that butterflies were not, in fact, physically present in any human stomach, and that no verification attempt was necessary. I thought about the boarding alarm that morning, the spinning deck, the rifle in my hands, the smell of scorched metal and recycled air, 17 people in medical, all of that still sitting at the back of the day, still real, still waiting to be processed in whatever way soldiers and crew members process things when the shift is finally over and the lights go low. And then I thought about a 2.5-meter alien advisor on the floor of her quarters, lower left hand carefully raised, scratching at a door panel in the name of thorough research. Doing it with total sincerity. Doing it because she wanted to understand. Something about that image made the rest of the day smaller and the room warmer, and the particular weight of existing in deep space a little easier to carry. Butterflies in your stomach, I said, means a nervous feeling. The fluttering, unsettled sensation you get when something important is about to happen and you are not sure how it is going to go. Vela wrote this down carefully. Humans locate emotional experience in the stomach? She asked. We locate it everywhere. Stomach, heart, gut, chest, head, bones. We are genuinely confused about where feelings actually live. I have noticed, she kept writing, but you are aware that butterflies could not survive in a stomach environment. We are fully aware. Yet you use the image anyway. We use the image anyway. She pressed her lips together. On a human face, that particular expression means holding something in. On a Thalian face, watching Vela carefully these past weeks, I was beginning to think it meant exactly the same thing. She clicked the stylus once, she closed the pad, she set it on the table between us with the kind of quiet finality that felt like something being gently put to rest for the night, not forgotten, just rested. Your species, she said, is the strangest thing I have ever studied. Most people who spend time with us come to that conclusion, I agreed. And yet, she did not pick the pad back up. She just left her hands on the table, all 4 of them, still. You are the only species in the known galaxy that laughs at itself, not in cruelty and not in performance, just because something is genuinely, absurdly funny and you cannot help it. I thought about that for a moment. Is that unusual? She looked at me with those green-gold eyes. It is the most human thing I have ever observed, she said. And I mean that as the highest thing I know how to say. The common room was quiet around us. Outside the long viewport, space moved past the ship the way it always did, slow and silent and enormous, and completely indifferent to everything happening inside our small moving piece of hull. Full of things that wanted to destroy us and things that wanted to study us and things that, on certain mornings before a battle, got on the floor and scratched at a door with their lower left hand just to understand us a little better. Lucy stretched both arms above her head and looked at Vela with the easy warmth of someone who had made a decision about a person and was comfortable with it. Same time tomorrow? Vela retrieved her pad. I have 41 more phrases. 41, I said. I removed 2. They were redundant. She opened to the next page. Her eyes moved along the line of the first phrase and settled there. This one, she said, and turned the pad to show me. I read it. It was from Finn Graves, who had written in the crew chat about his training schedule, going full beast mode in the gym all week, no days off. Beast mode, Vela said. Maximum effort, I said quickly. Pushing yourself as hard as you can. No transformation, no actual beasts involved. She nodded once, slowly. I had suspected as much. Did you practice this one? She looked at me for exactly 3 seconds. I did not practice this one, she said. Good. I only crawled for puppy style. I know. Once, she added. Of course. From the far end of the room, Sam's voice arrived, flat and quiet and resolute. I am going to sleep now, in a position I will not be naming out loud in this room. Lucy started laughing again. I was right behind her. Viola watched both of us with that silver and gold steadiness, and when we finally settled and the room went quiet, and the only sound was the low hum of the ship moving through space, she opened her pad to the next phrase and looked at me with those remarkable eyes, waiting. 41 more phrases. I thought about how long that would take. I thought about every question she would ask, everything she would note down, every careful and thorough and completely unexpected way she would try to get closer to understanding what it meant to be human. I pulled my chair a little closer to the table. All right, I said. What is next?